All right, welcome to another episode of the 24th Floor. If you didn't know, this is what I'm calling showdown week for high school football. You're talking about Houston and Collierville, Briarcrest at MUS, Memphis Central at Mumford, and of course, the biggest game, Southwind and Germantown.
They're calling it the Super Bowl, and yes, it has. It's been TikToks on TikToks from both fan bases hyping this game up. Undefeated Southwind on the road at Germantown, looking to stay perfect. It's arguably the two best teams on this side of the state, Ruben.
Yeah, so to help us break this down for this high school football week, we brought in the man, Wendell Shepard, in here from the Commercial Appeal. We appreciate you taking the time. You got all the high school knowledge, right?
Yeah, thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get into it. Before we started, I showed you some of the TikToks that have been going on. This game, Southwind and Germantown, is hyped for real.
It really is. After the first few weeks of this season, and it became clear, these are two of the better teams around here. And I remember talking with some of the South coaches. I was like, it's a shame you guys won't play Germantown until the last week of the season because I was excited to see it then. And both teams have looked really good since then. And I'm really excited for this game.
So Wendell and I, we are always often talking on the sidelines. It seems like almost every game I'm at, he's at. And so, Wendell, let's just kind of let the audience in a little bit on kind of what we talk about. When you look at like Southwind and Germantown, like you said, or like we both have said, arguably two of the best teams, I kind of want to put you on the spot earlier. Who do you think the edge leans to going into this game?
I think I probably lean Southwind, and the reason for that, I guess, is looking at Germantown's two losses. Mumford this past week and DeSoto Central, I think, a month ago. Both teams that run the ball really well, and they gave up a lot of yards on the ground. And this is, Germantown plenty capable offensively of hanging with anyone. But Southwind is this year especially has been kind of a change from past years. Obviously, everyone knows Kelvin Perkins. He can throw the ball about as well as anyone in the state. But they run the ball really, really well, and that offensive line is dominant up front. And especially if weather impacts this game and it's muddy out there, I probably give Southwind the edge.
They play kind of like the Ravens. I've said that several times. Maybe it's just because of the colors. You know what I'm saying?
I think it's just because of the colors.
But Perkins plays a lot like Lamar. With them running the ball a lot, it reminds me of their, the Ravens running backs with Justice Hill, Derrick Henry, all those type of guys. So, I love the way Southwind plays, but it's just weird. This game is on a Thursday instead of a Friday.
Yeah.
I think it couldn't have worked out any better, because it's a Thursday game on the Halloween week, all the hype and all the attention. And to me, you're leaning Southwind, and I could definitely see why you would. They're undefeated, and they've beaten some really good people so far this year. Started off strong.
From Briarcrest.
Los Ann, I believe they didn't.
Yeah, we just had it. That was game of the week.
Win that game early, easy. But I feel like Germantown has something to prove.
Yeah.
That staff, those kids, those losses are not. They're not sitting pretty with Germantown.
Yeah, but especially this game right here that we got. When they went up against Mumford. To me, I thought Germantown was going to. I'll be honest, I thought Germantown was going to blow out Mumford. And maybe I'm not giving Mumford the proper respect because they run that wing T offense. They're just running the ball.
That's
so they're
hard to stop.
But they're predictable in a way. So I thought Germantown that they would have the method because it seemed like they answered the bell all season. But I think what I saw in that game, I feel like now Southwind is like, okay, this team, we can beat them. You know what I'm saying? So now I kind of feel like the win is kind of out of the sails a bit for Germantown going into this matchup. And I think Southwind, this is an opportunity for them to show that they are the best team in the league.
So what's your take on Germantown?
I think one thing that'll be interesting to see in this game especially is Germantown, in the games I've covered of theirs this season, they can definitely control the clock.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I was at their game when they played Lausanne. They won a really close one in that game. But the last drive of that game, or the last couple of drives of that game, they were eating up 5, 6, 7 minutes going down the field. And they have plenty of explosive playmakers, Trayvon McGorry, Larry Johnson at running back.
That touchdown.
They can move down the field quickly if they want to, but they also have a good offensive line as well and a couple of good running backs that can control the game. So I would anticipate Gene Robinson's probably going to want to slow this game down, not let Southwind touch the ball very much. And I think just depending on how things bounce, if someone can get a turnover, Germantown's definitely not a long shot in this game at all. And I definitely think they could control the clock and get the ball last and win this one for sure.
What have you seen from their quarterback, Jordan Shelton? I mean, when we look at a lot of the quarterbacks in the area, it's usually the older guys, seniors. This kid is a sophomore, right?
Yeah, he is a sophomore.
You know what I'm saying? And for him to be QB1 of arguably, one of the best teams in the area, what have you seen from him, his development over the season?
He's really impressive. I saw him play once his freshman year. He was splitting time as a freshman, and he's physically impressive. He's 6'1". He has a great arm. As you saw in that Lausanne game, he had 75-yard pass. He's got a great arm. He runs the ball well. I think the most impressive thing has probably been his poise, and Gene Robinson will tell you the same thing. They've had a couple of games this year. They've beat good teams. They've beat Houston, Whitehaven, Lausanne, and all of those games have required some pretty intense drives late in the game to game-winning drives, and he's led them and has looked comfortable, made important throws in tight windows. So yeah, he's really impressive in many ways, and he's definitely going to be a name that we talk about for a while around here.
All right, so let's keep that video rolling, actually, Leanna, if you don't mind, because that's going to be the Southwind quarterback. Let's take a look at some of that video. This is when they played Lausanne
in our first game
early in the season. Talk a little bit about Kelvin Perkins, because we just talked about Jordan Shelton, who we all know is extremely talented, especially at his age. Let's talk a little bit about Mr. Perkins as well.
I think, and I haven't been around Memphis high school football very long, but I think in the time I've been here, he's a one-of-one type player, and that he can just take over a game. If someone does beat that offensive line, gets in the backfield, you're probably not bringing him down.
Yeah.
He can evade tacklers, make throws, make plays with his arm, make plays with his feet. He's elusive running the ball.
There he is. Right
yeah, he's just really hard to stop, and I haven't seen anyone this season really stop him, even when they've played good teams. So I think he's a game changer, and especially once in this game this weekend in the playoffs, he's one of those types of players that can really make a difference when you have two evenly matched teams.
And it's funny because, looking at this game, you look at the highlights and you're thinking that Lausanne dominated Southwind. And it's just Lausanne just got out ahead early, but then the rest of this is all Southwind.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Perkins doing this thing where I think, what was the final score, 42-17 or something like that? So,
he just looks so comfortable in the pocket.
Yeah.
That's the pressure, and he just never looked like he didn't know what he wanted to do.
I'm telling you, he's like Lamar out there.
Yeah, and he's sneaky fast and physical runner, not afraid to take a hit, and he gives some hits at defensive back occasionally. I don't know if you guys have caught him out there at defense a few times this season, but
I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
he plays both ways.
He's a heck of a player. Not regularly, but that Briarcrest game, he came in second half, made a couple of tackles, important tackles too. So yeah, he's a heck of a player.
Now you bring up Briarcrest, and I know they're not in our game of the week, and we right now don't have any video for them that we can show to people. But just look at. This is nut up or shut up time. With this being the final week of the regular season, you got teams like Briarcrest, you got teams like Christian Brothers, you got teams like Lausanne, who we had there. Who else out there? Central and Mumford, we can talk on that. Who else out there have you been really keeping an eye on besides these two teams that'll be in our game of the week?
I have not seen Mumford play this season, but they've been completely dominant and impressive.
Roll that Mumford.
Have beat two really strong 6A teams in Whitehaven and Germantown, and that running game is really tough to stop. I know they've had some early playoff exits the last couple of years, and I'm sure they're going to be motivated to not let that happen. So I think they're a team that's going to be sticking around for a while. And Briarcrest, too, has been really impressive to me, especially after the season they had last year. Only won 4 games a season ago and returned a lot of the same guys and looked like a completely new outfit. Hudson Tucker's thrown nearly 30 touchdown passes this season. That defense has played well against some strong teams when they've needed to. And to me, a game they lost has probably been the most impressive performance they had, Brentwood Academy.
Yeah.
They lost 34-31, and I wasn't at that game, but looking through the notes and stats from that game, they dominated. Mm-hmm. It was just a pick six, a untimely fumble, and a couple other bad moments that let Brentwood Academy come out by 3 in that game. But they dominated one of the best teams in the state. So they'll have some very tough competition on the other side of the state in D2 AAA, but I think they can definitely make some noise in the playoffs.
Yeah, so as we continue to go through, who's some of the teams that maybe, like for us, we kind of think Houston. We had really high hopes for Houston, and maybe even Whitehaven might be one of those teams. Who are some of those teams that maybe you thought, man, this team is going to really dominate this year, and then maybe did not ever get out of the gate the way they needed to?
I would have to say Whitehaven is probably that team for me. I had ranked them really highly in the preseason, and they're still a really talented team.
Yeah.
The games they've lost have all been to great teams. They lost to, I believe, Southwind, Germantown, Innsworth.
Yeah, those are all
those are all really good teams. And I guess it's just that thing is like, I forget who said this, it's like to be the best, you got to beat the best. And they haven't done
I said that. Just
to beat the man, you got to beat the man. That was said by Ric Flair.
That's true.
Yeah.
No, and they have tons of talent, and Christopher Talley is going to be one of those players that no one's going to be able to stop in the playoffs. So I'm not counting them out at all. But I would say, just as far as looking at win-loss records, where they're at now is probably not where I expected them to be. But I'm not counting them out at all.
So last thing I'll ask before we got to let you go. We talk about it all the time on the sidelines, but I just want the people to know, who do you think is our best chance to go all the way to Chattanooga and win it all?
That's a good question.
It doesn't have to be one team. It could be a handful of teams because all the different regions.
That's a good question. I would probably say Southwind in 6A.
Okay.
They're going to run into Ravenwood or Oakland at some point in the playoffs or in the final, and that's going to be a really tough game. But I think up until that point, I'm confident they can get there. In 2A, I think fairly. They've been to the state semifinals the last 2 years, if not 3 years.
Yeah.
And they've been knocking on the door, and they look great again this year. Big game against Mace this week. Those are probably the two I would look at. I think Melrose is going to be good in 4A. 3A, I should say, but they're going to run into a Westview team or Westview or Covington that's going to be a tough matchup. But I think it would not surprise me if they made it back to Chattanooga again. Those are probably the teams I'm looking at to get to Chattanooga and maybe win it all.
Cool. We're going to hold you to those teams.
He is for real.
All right, let's get people ready before we get you out here. We have a special Thursday edition of the Game of the Week because of the holiday. We're talking about Halloween. Again, we're going to be live out at Germantown for the Germantown and Southwind game for that big game of the week. We do want to say thank you, Wendell, so much for taking the time.
Of course.
Blessing us with that knowledge. And, of course, now everything you said is on record, so I can keep that on record in case you happen to be wrong, which is what I do to him all the time.
He never has any takes. He just be like, you were wrong.
But I'm always right. All right, time for our first break. When we come back, we got to talk about the Memphis Tigers.
Yes, what's next for the Tigers after that huge win over South Florida? Stay close.
All right, welcome back. If you're a Memphis Tiger football fan, then you probably already have an inhaler, maybe some heart medication, something to help get you through the highs and lows of the season.
Yeah, we are talking about a team that loves to play with your emotions more than your ex. It's just like that toxic relationship. The lows are painful, but the highs, they feel so good.
We're going to get you some therapy. So consider us Dr. Phil as we get you through this season.
That's why we brought in frequent friend of the program, John Maddox, longtime Memphis sports analyst for On3, who's been watching this program for decades and has been locked in with this relationship with the Tigers for years. John, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. And you know what they say, catch footballs, not feelings.
Well, unfortunately, with some of these teams, you got to catch both at the same time.
Yeah, it's been quite a ride for a number of years, but happy to be along for it for sure.
Well, let's talk about this latest rise in the roller coaster. You have the dip from the loss at UAB. Then you get this momentous high from beating USF. What's your take on their ability to bounce back into that game?
Well, I think a lot of it is, you see it also from week to week, guys. You see it where Memphis starts slow, and then they're a second-half team. And Ryan Silverfield's 8-0 now in games following a loss. So Memphis knows how to recover really well. And think about it, even that UAB game, guys, you're a toe step away from at least being tied to go to overtime when you didn't deserve to be in the game at all. So I just think it's a testament to the staff and their ability to kind of, what they say, circle the wagons a little bit. And, new test again this Friday, and it's all about carryover.
It's so much that I can get into about with this game. I mean, first off, let's hit on Brendan Lewis.
Yep.
I mean, he may be number 2 on the field, but you can also say, number 2 is for when he shows up because the second half, 27 for 44, 307 yards, 2 touchdowns. A lot of that came in the second half. Now, I was at the game this past Saturday, and the first half, I was kind of thinking about what I talked with Ruben last week about, okay, they had A.J. Hill. A lot of people said A.J. Hill should be the guy. I was kind of agreeing a bit in the first half because Lewis just wasn't looking good, John. And then that second half, he turns it on, and I texted Ruben. To me, Silverfield, it wasn't really on him. It was more on Brendan Lewis really willed the team to go get that victory. What do you think about that?
Well, I think in the first half, I think he's hurt. I mean, to be perfectly honest, I think he's banged. But, there's a difference this time of the year being hurt, being injured. But he's taken some big hits, and that ankle is probably bothering him. But I think once he got in, it's kind of like when you see fighters get in a fight and it takes a few punches and then they kind of wake up. I think that's what you saw in the second half is he just decided, no matter what, I've got to turn it on here in the second half. And he felt more comfortable on that ankle as the game went along. But you guys are right. He really turned it up in the second half. But that's also part of the defense too, putting Memphis in better situations in terms of offense. But undoubtedly, he really knew how to ratchet it up in the second half. When Memphis really couldn't get the running game going, he did enough to get it started and to get Memphis across the finish line.
It's funny that you mentioned the running game because that was one of the next points that I wanted to make was that South Florida held Memphis to 129 yards rushing as a team.
Yeah.
They've traditionally got at least one dude getting that by himself. So let's talk a little bit about what South Florida did so well that Memphis needs to correct moving forward.
Well, South Florida is huge up front. That's the big thing. They are large up front. They're very athletic. And Coach Silverfield told us as such the Monday before that, this was going to be a big test for them. The linebackers know how to fill. And I think they just had a really solid game plan and just never allowed – I don't know if you really noticed it, but, usually how Memphis has success is they're not getting hit in the backfield. And their first contact is 2-3 yards downfield. And we didn't really see that very much. We saw a lot of, point of attack, half yard deep, so guys had to expend a lot of energy to break loose. And then South Florida does a great job of swarming to the football as well. And, it's just they've stopped everybody this year. This was no surprise. But Memphis did enough in the running game. In the second half, they did just enough to kind of get their offense going.
To Ruben's point, when you look up and you see that Memphis isn't really doing this thing on the ground, you could kind of say that on both sides. They weren't really doing their thing in the passing game, and until the second half, they kind of turned it on. Now, let me go back to what I talked about where I felt like it was more Brendan Lewis and Cortez that won this game rather than Silverfield. John, I'm pretty sure you saw it. Memphis scored a touchdown, and they go for 2 instead of kicking the extra point. They put themselves in an unnecessary situation. If you would have kicked the extra point, it's 24-31. Instead, he goes for 2. He doesn't get it. Now it's 23-31. It's a bunch of booing from the crowd, and rightfully so. Now it's like Silverfield once again is going to cost Memphis this game. I think when you look at this game, John, the coaches were just getting a bit too cocky for my taste. You had Silverfield wanting to go for 2. Then you had USF. They had a chance where they could have extended the lead and didn't take the point. Just kind of what was your take from all of this?
So we talked about on my podcast, my show last night, Tigers Tonight. If you look at the chart, Memphis should have absolutely gone for 2 in that spot. 100%. And not to get way off in the weeds, but there's a couple reasons. Number one, then 2 field goals get you tied. And there's also some analytics that say it's easier to go for 2 twice because you're almost guaranteed to get 1 of the 2.
Yeah, which they ended up getting 1.
I didn't think Memphis – I don't think Memphis had a good play call for that go for 2. But, USF had stuffed the run all day. But – the goalish decision to, on 4th and 3 from the 7, that was just boneheaded. And, somebody, you guys, I don't think were here, but it was very reminiscent of the 2015 Ole Miss game where they lined up their all-everything defensive tackle, Robert Nkendike, in the backfield on 4th and 1 to try to get a first down inside the 10, and they didn't get it, and that ended up costing them the game. And I think the stop that Memphis got on that 4th down really started to kind of turn the tide and let Memphis believe, hey, we can really do this.
Yeah.
See, I would have I'm glad, John, you and I are on the same page here because I agree that they would should have. If you do the math, you got to go for 2 either early or late. And it's
Every
easier to
time.
go for
Yep.
it early because if you get it, then you're not forced to go for it late. But if you don't go for it early, you are forced to go for it late because of the spread of the score. Either way, you're going to have to go for 2.
Well, not necessarily in that situation because if they would have kicked, it would have been 24-31, which means if they would have scored again, it would have tied. Now, obviously, we're sitting here, hindsight being 2020, it paid off for them as they scored. I mean, they ended up kicking a field goal, then they scored, and they got the 2 later to make it 34-31. But it's just like, for me, why put yourself in that situation where you had to get it? It panned out for them, but I promise you, if they would have lost, we would have been talking about this even more.
But John's right. So much of sports now is analytics compared to back in the day. And analytics plays such a crucial part in decision making for coaches now, way more than I would say it did 15, 20 years ago, even 10 years ago. So now when a scenario comes up, before they ever got to that point, I'm sure analytically somebody had already said, we're probably going to have to go for 2 now, just because that way if we have to go for, even if we miss, that gives us a chance to go for 2 again later. So the analytics, John, to your point, are huge.
Well, and if you think about it, if you get that, now you're at 31-25. And so now 2 field goals get you tied, or a touchdown extra point gets you tied. But they were going to have to go for it that second time regardless, because even if let's say you don't get it and it's 31-23, or it's 33-31 and a field goal beats you, but when you go that second time and you get it, now the worst that can happen is a tie. So there's so much math, Ruben, you're right, that goes into this now, and these coaches have these charts and literally have interns on staff that this is their job, is to kind of manage the analytics and the charts.
Let's switch gears now and talk about what's got to happen next. Now you got Rice, and you're talking about a team that traditionally isn't strong anymore. Rice hasn't been good in a long, long time, I don't feel like. But they did get a win last week.
Double overtime.
Yeah, Rice is coming off of a win. And so is this another trap game?
Yeah.
I really feel like Memphis learned their lesson with that. But here's something that, a lot of people, we talked about this last night, don't realize. Memphis only leads the series 3-2, and Memphis's largest margin of victory. Now, they've only played twice in the quote modern, 2012 on. Memphis's largest margin of victory is 7 points. And this is you would think, right? You would think, because to your point, Rice has not been very good. But I think Memphis probably learned their lesson last week or at UAB. And this is a little different situation because you had a couple of unknowns going into the UAB game. You didn't know you were going to have a backup quarterback. You didn't know they were going to fire Trent Dilfer. And even if you knew, you didn't know what Alex Mortensen was going to put in. And you had a team that was a little higher. But now what you're looking at is you kind of have some knowns around Rice. And their problem's been scoring the football. They're just not a good scoring team. Decent UConn team. They had to go double overtime at home. And I just don't think that this is the game that poses the threat that, frankly, look, guys, I thought either Troy, Florida Atlantic, I thought both those games were threats because you had the Arkansas game sandwich, but you just come off a high against USF. And you know that this is your last, nothing's easy, right? And Coach Schofield, if you see this, I'm not saying anything's easy. But, if you don't see this is your last, quote, easy game, because then you've got Tulane, East Carolina, Navy. So I think Memphis's goal here is to go in, take care of business, don't get anybody hurt, and get out of Houston with a win before they change their mind.
I'm glad you bring it up because the gauntlet is on, and it's a tough road ahead for Memphis. They got to go perfect. And so while they did get over this bridge of beating USF, which now you can probably say is the statement victory of the season, even more so than Arkansas because USF was ranked, how do you kind of foresee, just what do you feel about Memphis right now? Do you feel confident they can win out? I mean, obviously looking past, maybe we shouldn't look past Rice because of the trap game, but still, let's say, like you said, they take care of business against Rice. Do you feel confident that they beat Tulane back here?
Tulane, Navy, I'm pretty confident in both of those. Man, that trip to East Carolina looms large. And that's why you couldn't afford the UAB loss, because that trip to East Carolina was always going to be tough. But now but I also don't think what you're going to see here at the end of the year is all the top teams play each other. So you're going to see what they call the cannibalization of the American, where teams are going to knock off other teams. And I don't think it's far-fetched that a 2-loss conference team gets in the championship game. That said, I'm fairly confident about Tulane because, let's just be real, there are going to be rumors swirling about John Summerall again.
Yep.
And you saw how they checked out last year when that started. But, the flip side is there may be rumors about Coach Silverfield. But I am more confident in the 2 home games than I am that trip to East Carolina, because it's a place Memphis has historically struggled and, lost their last trip over there. And it's just one of those things, you can't think about you literally, and it's not coach speak. You have to go 1-0 every week, because you can't start thinking about East Carolina while you're playing Tulane, because then you're going to be tight, and how important and how tough that East Carolina game is going to be. So I'm pretty confident in Tulane, maybe a little less confident in Navy, because playing these service academies is always a challenge. But that East Carolina game is the one that just kind of jumps out at me, where I'm like, I don't know, this one could really go either way.
See, I was going to say, and I know we got to let you go here pretty quick, but I was going to say Navy is the game that scares me, just because of the style of play, end of the season, all those things that you're like, man, I'd love to play them 3 weeks earlier to get that out of the way, right, and then not have to end on that. But to your point, that you take UAB and East Carolina and say you can afford to lose one, which one are you going to lose, kind of a deal. All right, I think that little banner says we're running out of time, John, so we're going to go ahead and let you go. We appreciate you taking the time, again, spending your day with us, giving us all this inside knowledge on Memphis.
Thanks for having me, guys. Happy to join you.
I appreciate you, big dog. Now let's take our next break. Coming up, we're going to be previewing the Ole Miss Rebels. And the Rebels are hosting the Gamecocks, who almost upset Bama.
Is it another trap game? We check in with our guy, Stephen Willis, for his take after the break. All right, welcome back to the 24th floor. We're shifting gears to Oxford now. Ole Miss sitting at 7-1, ranked number 8 in the country and looking like a real college football playoff contender.
Yeah, right now, though, the Rebels have the hottest coaching candidate in the country, and head coach Lane Kiffin. We're hearing his name with LSU, Florida. He might be able to run for governor right now. That's how popular the dude is.
Relax. We don't need more of that. We don't need more coaches trying to get into politics. So to help us separate the rumor from the fact, we bring in our expert. He is the host of the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, which you can catch right here on 24 Plus, YouTube, and anywhere you listen to podcasts. Mr. Stephen Willis, come on, Ruby. You got to get the clap ready for me because we're about to hike the ball.
No. Stephen, I can't get with it, brother. I just can't do it.
You don't want to hike the ball?
I got you, man.
Yeah, I just can't do it. Can we talk about the 7,000-pound elephant in the room, and that is everybody and their grandma wants Lane Kiffin?
Yes.
Yes. And I'm pretty sure that the list isn't done yet. Everybody wants it, but it's a consequence of being really good at what you're doing and kind of getting everybody's attention, because if they can't do it themselves, they want to take what you have. Mm-hmm. And that's just an example of how good the team has been, how well they're playing. The fact that Trinidad Chambliss is just balling out this year. Everybody assumes that, hey, if Lane Kiffin can do it at little old Ole Miss, he can do it at LSU or Florida or whatever other big job is available. And the reality of that is that's not completely true. I would say ask Dan Mullen about going from a job that is highly successful to Florida and how easy it is to do that. There's been a laundry list of coaches that haven't been able to do that. If you are in a position to where you are getting compensated well, which Lane Kiffin is already a top 10 highest paid head coach in college football. His coordinators are the top paid in the SEC, both offensive and defensive. Kind of feels like you have a pretty good gig already, despite whatever brand and how big the fan base is, wherever that might be.
So I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I don't think Lane Kiffin will leave Ole Miss except for 2 positions. Number 1, if Alabama ever becomes open, which I know we thought that may have happened when they lost to Florida State, I could see Kiffin going over there, or if he goes back to the NFL. That's the only chance I would see Lane Kiffin leave, at least for the next 3 seasons. Now, when his kids graduate, and Steven, you can weigh in on this because I know you're really tapped in on that. When his kids graduate and are all out the hen house, then we can do all of this. But this LSU, Florida nonsense, Penn State, it's not, like, what, why? It's not a thing to me. Why would you leave Ole Miss to go there, especially now in this NIL world?
Steven, before you answer,
Yeah.
can I tap in my 2 cents, and then I want you to take both these and answer to it. Coaches have a different mentality, I would say. They love a challenge, too. Sometimes that challenge of, can I be the guy that turns this program around at X, Y, or Z? Sometimes that can be enough to intrigue them. Now, I don't know that any of these are that challenge, Stephen, but I think, to your point, money's not going to be the determining factor. It's going to be whether or not he sees a challenge or something else that he wants to explore.
Yeah, one thing that is clear, one of the ways that he pitches recruits when they visit is, do you want to go somewhere and be just another great running back? Do you want to be Derrick Henry at Alabama or Reggie Bush at USC? Or do you want to come to Ole Miss and be the person that other recruits want to be? If you want to be the first version of a superstar recruit. And if Lane Kiffin believes that, he is kind of living that currently. And those decisions are going to come after the season. And it's almost a sad thing that this coaching search is popping up at the end of the year, because Ole Miss is 4 wins away from having all of their dreams come true as far as hosting a playoff game, the biggest football game in the state of Mississippi. At least they might even get a bye if they can win 4 games in a row that they're going to be favored by double digits in all of them. I always say on my podcast, next year is here. It is on to the questions of what you're willing to do as a fan, what the players are willing to do as players, what the coaches are willing to do. Every opportunity, literally everything, is at the fingertips of this Ole Miss football team. And all we're talking about is Lane Kiffin to Florida, Lane Kiffin to LSU. And there's no guarantee that it would happen one way or another, because Ole Miss is a pretty good gig right now.
To your point then, should Coach come out and say, I'm not talking about anything, I don't want to look at anything until this season is over? You know, should he put his foot in the ground and say, don't even say my name?
Didn't he essentially do that with his team already, though?
But publicly, we're talking about publicly.
Yeah, I think we're in a situation to where no matter what he says is going to be taken as he's leaving.
Yeah.
And it's going to be such a big deal and blown out of proportion. It might be more of a distraction if he came out and did that. Because the reality is, let's say Ole Miss makes him the highest paid coach in college football. He's not going to sign a contract that puts him at an $80 million buyout. So you're still in exactly the same position, just that he's guaranteed a little bit more money. You're still having to deal with Lane Kiffin potentially going out, and they will mention that. It's like, well, they didn't jump the buyout to $100 million. Well, of course not. Lane Kiffin would not sign a contract where the buyout was $100 million. But that's the reason they're not doing this this during the season. And Lane Kiffin has a rule that he is not going to talk about anything relating to jobs during the season. And the fact that he even addressed it, that shows that he learned from 2022, and that's incredibly a smart thing to do. But I don't think people thinking he's going to go, I don't think people thinking he's going to stay, anybody has an answer about that right now. Mm-hmm. I think that he would be silly to go, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he will or he won't.
Yeah.
So last thing we'll ask about Lane Kiffin before we focus on the matchup. Do you think that it's safe to say that this team right here is the best team Lane Kiffin has had since he got to Ole Miss?
You know, do you remember, well, Tennessee fans that are watching this might remember, but 1998 with T. Martin, that year that they won their national championship. That came off the year before everybody just assumed that Tennessee would play for that. That was Peyton Manning's senior year. They had all of those dudes, and they just didn't quite get it done. I think Tennessee went to the Orange Bowl and got beat by Nebraska that year. The next year, T. Martin was the quarterback. The expectations went down a little bit, and lo and behold, they just found a way to win games. That was the Clint Sterner fumble game that got Tennessee into the national championship picture. There's a little bit of an echo of that happening this year. Everybody assumed that Ole Miss was going to make their run a year ago, and they had like the second best roster in all of college football, but Ole Miss found a way to lose 3 games, for better or for worse. Everybody assumed that this year Ole Miss would take a step back, and naturally they went 9-3, so this is going to be a 7-5, 8-4 team if they take a step back. And I was like, and I've said that on this show, Ole Miss had a 12-0 roster a year ago, so if they took a step back, they could still win 11 or 10 games and be in a much better position this year. And if Ole Miss can just do chalk the last 4 games, just do chalk. You beat South Carolina, you beat the Citadel, and you beat Florida at home, and you go down to Mississippi State, and it's a coronation, and you go 11-1. This Ole Miss team has a chance to far exceed anything that Lane Kiffin has ever done coaching. They might not be the more talented team over last year because that was a unbelievably talented team. This team just, I'm telling you, the addition of Trinidad Chambliss and him using the quarterback position as almost a point guard has completely unlocked this Ole Miss offense. It's made life a little bit easier for Pete Golding and the defense, and it'll be really interesting to stay. I do think that when Ole Miss gets South Carolina and they get Florida, it's going to be important to front run a little bit. Yeah. You don't want to get to the middle of the third quarter, the fourth quarter, and it be a really tight game because of the pressure involved with this. I think that the longer Ole Miss can front run, the better off they're going to be, at least until you hit that Florida game.
Well, speaking of South Carolina, I mean, they almost shocked the world last weekend. I know they scared quite a few Bama fans. How dangerous is South Carolina? Because their record can be a little deceiving based on the amount of talent they actually have.
Yeah, you have Lenore Sellers, who is the best quarterback in the SEC of taking dead plays and bringing them back to life. I mean, he's just amazing at doing that. You have Dylan Stewart, who's an amazing pass rusher. You have Nick Harbor. You just have some dudes on the South Carolina team. But for whatever reason, it hasn't clicked this year. Now, the version of that South Carolina team that you're going to get in Vaught-Hemingway Stadium, is it going to be the guys that scared the heck out of Missouri? Is it going to be them? Or is it going to be a let go of the rope version after what happened, that gut punch that they had against the Alabama Crimson Tide a week ago? I think that's interesting. I think the best, if South Carolina brings their absolute best and Ole Miss plays their absolute best, Ole Miss is going to win the game by 10 points.
So we talk about Lenore Sellers, big mobile QB for them. Do you think how do you see them containing him? I mean, I think this is the first time in a while. Well, I mean, I guess if you count Gunnar Stockton, but this is the first time that Ole Miss is really dealing with a mobile QB like that, a dynamic runner like that.
Well, John Mateer last week is a dynamic runner. I think the emergence of Prince Will Amon-Mielen is big for this Ole Miss team.
Wait a minute, say that one more time.
Prince Will Amon-Mielen.
Man, you get bonus points just for getting that right 2 times in a row, brother.
Yeah, I can't stand his brother, man. His brother.
But continue. Go ahead and continue, Stephen.
Yeah, if you have those 2 guys, you have a dual spy type situation trying to get to the quarterback, and it is hard to get him down. Last year, Ole Miss had a real good amount of success with Lenore Sellers, but the finished product of him hadn't quite been developed yet. So it's going to be imperative for Centarian Perkins and Prince Will Amon-Mielen to kind of box Sellers in, because the one way that South Carolina can really hurt you is if Sellers gets loose, and that becomes a normal thing. They don't have weapons on the outside necessarily. They can complete a big play every now and then. Their defense isn't quite as good as a year ago, and they have no running game. This is a situation that's a good matchup for the Ole Miss team as a whole, but you can't let South Carolina hang around because of Sellers. Sellers is an elite skill set quarterback, and if you allow his legs to run, ask Clemson from a year ago, he can take you apart.
So let's look at the other side of the coin for it. South Carolina's defense, they've been decent in spots, but they're giving up like 45% on third down, and you can't have that going up against one of the top offenses in the nation. Is this where Ole Miss, you think, can really take control?
Yeah, I think it's going to be important for Ole Miss to convert on third down. They've been really good this season on third down. Trinidad, the whole 9 yards there. But I think this is a game where Kejuan Lacey kind of makes a star turn. This is a 150 yards, 2 touchdowns type game. And he is going to get fed because we've seen from Lane Kiffin and Charlie Weiss Jr., they will feed the running back if he needs to do. And they need his pass protection as well with Dylan Stewart. But I do think this is the game where you kind of take advantage of the fact that South Carolina isn't quite as good up front to kind of push them around a little bit and do what Missouri did to them earlier in the season. I think Missouri ran for 300 yards and they gave up like negative 17 yards rushing. That game was a 100% rushing game, and I think Ole Miss is going to try and recreate that.
All right, Stephen, before we let you go, real quick, what's your prediction on the score of this game?
I'm saying Ole Miss 31, South Carolina 10.
That's not think it's going to be close. All right, brother, we appreciate you taking the time today. Again, we will try to squash as many Lane Kiffin rumors around here as possible. I did hear he's running for governor, though, just so you know.
Stephen, before you go, tell us real quick what you're working on as we get into this spooky season.
We're getting ready for the game. We had a basically a one-on-one with Daquan Wright. It's on the YouTube page right now. We're working on our post-game shows. We have after the game, we're going to do it. We have an all-SEC version of a reaction show on Sunday. On Monday, we're going to start reacting to Chris Beard's basketball team, or Tuesday, I should say, whenever they open against Southeast Louisiana. We're going to try to react to every game this season. I think Friday next week we might be out, but as a whole, we're going to try and do that as we continue to provide the most perspectives around Ole Miss sports. So thank you all very much for having me, and anybody that's watching, tune in. It should be a lot of fun.
All right, you are the man, Stephen. We appreciate you. Don't forget you can check him out on this Locked On Ole Miss podcast. You can catch it here. You catch it on YouTube. You catch Stephen all over the place because he is all over the place. Stephen, have a great rest of your day. We appreciate you.
All right, thank you guys very much.
All right, time for another timeout. And on the other side of this break, we're talking hoops. Not college, though. We're talking Grizzlies. They're back in action. We break down the good, the bad, all that in between when we come back. All right, let's talk Grizzlies. 4 games in, they're sitting at 2-2. Not exactly a hot start, but not a disaster either. Ruben, how are you feeling about the team so far?
I feel like it's way too early to know if they're going to be good or not because of the injuries that have been around the team. You're still missing some very key members of this squad. And you're kind of trying to see what some of these young ones are going to be doing, like Cedric Howard. He's had an up and down, kind of slow in the preseason, had a really big game. I think he had like 27.
Yeah, against Indiana.
So there have been some bright spots, but again, an NBA season is so long that you gotta give them, I would say that first month, you just got to let it ride and see what happens.
Now, I'm going to give you a window to get on your soapbox about the NBA.
Okay.
If you look at these Grizzlies games, it's been a lot of scoring and a lot of them giving up a lot of points. I mean, you even look at this opening night victory over the
128
Pelicans.
to 122.
Exactly. So, like, the Grizzlies, defensively, they're not there, but you could probably say that about the league. So, kind of go ahead and get on your soapbox about how you feel about defense in the NBA.
This is my beef with the NBA right now. A few years back, David Stern and company made some changes to the way you could guard in the NBA and the way you could, how you were defending. And part of it was to protect star players, and part of it was to draw in more casual basketball fans who wanted to see more dunks, more threes, and higher scores. If you look at like basketball in the 90s in the NBA, in the early 2000s, those games would be in the 90s to low 100s.
Yeah.
All the games now are 120, 130. I saw the Grizzlies had 70 or 80 put up on them on halftime.
Against the Heat.
146,
114 was that final.
That should never happen. Not if you're. I don't care how good you are offensively. You should still be good defensively.
I think they are good defensively. I just think that
The
one
league
players
doesn't
are better.
want you to play defense.
Well, yeah, but I think guys still are guarding because we still got guys who are like.
No.
So
ain't
you
no way.
think
just roll any generic NBA footage. Just roll any of that Grizzlies footage, Leanna, and we'll see. You tell me as we watch this if you're seeing people lock up and guard, because I would challenge you to say no, they are not. Now, when a guy has to make a multi-dribble move with a step back with a hand in his face, that's different. But look at
right here.
You're telling
This
me
is on Herb Jones.
You're telling me
No,
he's
this is
locking
Zion.
down.
This is Zion.
You're telling me that's
Okay.
a lockdown, defenders.
Well,
defensively.
no, I want to see if it's a bucket scored. Okay,
that.
look at
Look at
Herb
that.
Jones. Okay, he's fighting over him.
Look, that's not even a contested shot. What's Josh, 6'3"? What's the defender down there? Look, you're telling me that is elite defense? Come on, bro. I can't even get with that. That's my beef with what has happened to the style of play in the NBA. And again, it's generationally. I just come from a generation of the NBA. Michael Jordan, Allen Iverson, Jason Kidd. Those were the players I followed and I watched extensively. The Dennis Rodmans of the world had a great place in the NBA because their skill set still translated. You can't even have that skill set right now.
So what defenders do you respect in the NBA?
Right
who you
now?
think are legit?
You know who I really loved was Marcus Smart.
Okay.
Played at OSU, obviously.
Yeah.
He was a guy that played here. He was a guy that would lock down and defend. Tony Allen.
Okay.
That's a great defender. That's somebody who every possession was going to be in your face. You were going to have to score on him. And I just don't see enough of that.
So no
in the NBA.
Draymond?
Draymond's dirty, man. Draymond's gonna kick in the junk. He ain't gonna try to stop you. He's gonna try to hurt you, throat chop you and act like he didn't do it. Draymond's sloppy, bro.
But what about for the Grizzlies that got Jalen Wells?
And look, and so I'm not saying nobody plays defense.
I know.
I'm saying I don't see enough of that in the NBA right now that makes me say, oh man, I'm watching a great game. I should never see a team score 70 or 80 points in a half of basketball. I shouldn't be seeing 40, 50, 60 three-point attempts in the NBA right now. And that's what takes people away from the NBA. True basketball lovers want to see good offense against good defense and see who can win. Casual basketball fans just want to see dunks and threes.
There you go.
And that's the difference.
Well, see, the reason why I bring up Jalen Wells, because I like to do a little connective tissue. Let's talk about the rotations. And when you look at Jalen Wells, rookie season, kept it going, still in the starting lineup. Now let's go to another person in that wing rotation, G.G. Jackson. Rookie season, all rookie team, second team. Last season he was hurt a lot, so that kind of stunted his growth. Then they had the coaching change. But here we are in year 3. G.G. Jackson has barely seen the floor so far. So what do you think is up with that?
I think they've added some more players.
But cream rises to the top. He still should find a way.
When you add those players, sometimes a guy who you thought, and every coach in America will tell you this, they've got a guy on their team right now who they think might be a contributor next season, and then they get somebody else in who just is better than that person. And that's what happens. Especially in professional sports. Mm-hmm. I mean, even at the college level right now, they'll tell you, college coaches will tell you, if they're not telling you the truth, every year they're recruiting to replace you. So you bring in a Cedric Coward who's going to take up minutes, especially defensively, because he's got those long arms and he does like to play defense. He is going to contest. Now and he's a bigger guard. He's a bigger kid. So that's what happens there. We wanted to talk a little bit about somehow the Grizzlies were looking. I put some numbers in here that I wanted you to see. Okay, right now John Moran is 29th in the league in scoring.
Okay.
22 points a game.
Yep.
The leader in the league is Tyrese Maxey at 43 points a game.
Tyrese been hooping though. All right. I see what you're trying to do here.
All right, let me give you another. This one I'm not. This one I think is all right, and it might coincide with the scoring. Ja currently ranked 18th in the league in assists.
6.5.
6.5 a game. But look who leads the league.
Joker.
With 12 assists a game.
Best modern day center.
Yes, I will give you that. Defensively, the Grizzlies not really standing out anyway, which you mentioned earlier. Yeah. Like 42nd in rebounds. That's Santi.
Their leading defensive rebounder is Santi Aldama.
Yes.
On the team with Jaren Jackson.
Yes.
Who is
and he's ranked.
All-star.
Santi's ranked 42nd in the league. In that. And then look at the Grizz shooting numbers. 41% from the field.
31% from the three.
Yes, they're ranked 25th in the league from three-point shooting.
Yeah.
So when you ask me what do I think about, what do I see right now, I see I see a team still trying to find themselves. They've got a new system in place with coaching staff that's, making some changes. You've got some guys coming back from injuries, some guys trying to make sure they stay healthy. Even Ja had the ankle issue or whatever, and he's trying to make sure he stays healthy. And then you're still missing some key pieces that'll help. So I think it's way too early in the season to give a thumbs up or a thumbs down. I've seen some really exciting moments of the Grizz so far, and then I've seen some, like, as you put in there, some head scratchers. What happened there?
Like the game against Miami,
Yes.
giving up 146 points. And then I didn't like how they looked against Golden State, but it's against Golden State in Golden State. You bring up Ja. Now what we're about to talk about has nothing to do with on the court. I don't know if you saw what happened off the court. Kendrick Perkins was on the Out the Mud podcast with Tony Allen and Zebo, and he took credit for Ja Morant's rise. He said basically the reason why Ja Morant is who Ja Morant is because Perk put him on.
Yeah,
What do you think? And that
yeah.
obviously got a rise out of Ja. He said something. He tweeted something. We're not going to pull up the tweet. And the internet obviously didn't let that slide. What do you think about that?
I think Perkins is smoking something.
Well, he was on this program, so you got to be careful.
To say that, come on. To say that about Ja. Now, and I will say this. Let's say that they had a conversation in private and he was trying to mentor Ja. You keep that in private. You don't go out in public and try to take credit for a man's growth and a man's maturity. I mean, Ja's gone through his own ups and downs, and he's growing up on his own and putting a city on his back, trying to represent the city. The idea that you would try to take credit for somebody else's growth publicly, I'm not cool with that. Now, privately, you want to holler at Ja and say, hey, thanks for listening to the things I said, and Ja says, I appreciate you. That's different. That's between two men in private. But publicly, I ain't got nothing for that.
I'm glad Zebo and Tony Allen really came to Ja's defense on that. And they were respectful about it. But, yeah, I mean, Ja knows who he is. I really love the accountability he's shown from the trouble that he's been in. But another soundbite, well, not really a soundbite, a quote Ja said that I took notice of is he said he never wanted to be the face of the league. And I think that was kind of like pushed on him. So I think guys like him and Anthony Edwards, they're a different breed of superstar where we try to throw the face of the league. And we're seeing how Anthony Edwards is kind of handling it now with Minnesota. But Ja, he got in trouble, which is why it was kind of ripped from him. And Ja's like, I didn't want this anyway.
Anthony don't want to be the face of the league. But that's where the league is struggling right now. The league has always lived on a face, right? Whether it was Magic Johnson and Larry Bird back in the day, then you take it to Michael Jordan, then you have your Kobe Bryants, and then they tried to push the face of the league on LeBron tried to put the face of the league on so many people for so many years, but every generation that desire to be the face of the league has dwindled a little bit.
Well, I'll take it up one more. Like, the face of the league is LeBron, but LeBron is getting old.
LeBron's on his way out.
I think the problem is not necessarily the face of the league isn't American. Think about it.
That's never going to happen.
You could arguably say the 5 best players in the league are not American.
Well, I think you should be careful where you say that at. Be careful where you say that at.
Luka, Jokic, SGA,
and
Giannis.
Just for
Embiid.
You can find Rich out in the public. Where are you going to be today, in case you have beef with what he just said?
I'm telling you,
I'm not disagreeing that the league has an
who's the best American player in the league right now?
International players that are definitely contributing. The problem is, in America, they're not going to ride a non-American as the face of the league.
Baseball, look at it. Baseball, they riding with Ohtani.
We're talking about basketball.
I'm telling you.
Same thing with football. You couldn't bring in a non-American football player and think
what international football player is like legit like that. I'm telling you, I think you're underlying the factor that the international players can be the face of the league. We're looking at it in baseball with Shohei Ohtani.
I'm not saying that they can't. I'm saying that they aren't. They don't get accepted like that. I don't feel like you don't see everybody just like in your city. Joker's going to be the man in Denver, right?
Yeah.
And now Luka's going to be the man now.
In LA, SGA and OKC.
But I just don't know why it hasn't happened or why it hasn't taken hold.
I mean, you look at, to me, what brought everybody together when basketball was during the Olympics.
Yes.
But look at the 3 faces of Team USA: LeBron, KD, Steph, all on their way out. So that's why you look at the next who is going to take the baton from them. That's why they put Anthony Edwards in that conversation.
don't
But
want that.
he's a knucklehead, you know what I'm saying? He's my guy
The dude
from when I was in Minnesota.
18 years of child support up front, so he didn't have to talk to his baby mama no more. That says I don't want to be the face of the league more than anything else he could ever say. On that note, it's time for a quick break.
Give me my one shot, please. Time for a quick break. Coming up on 901 Bets, I give you my picks for this week's college football matchups and the latest bankroll basics. Stay close. What up, and welcome to the 901 Bets. Think of this as sports betting for dummies right here in Memphis. Now, before we get rolling, quick reminder, if gambling has become a problem for you, hit that Tennessee Gambling Hotline, that number right on your screen, 800-889-9789. All right, y'all, time for today's bankroll basics. You ever think you've got a bet locked up, only for the other team to score in garbage time and blow it all up? Yeah, that's what we call a backdoor cover. Now, here's how it works. A team sneaks in at the end and covers the spread. Now, even though the game's already been decided, the score doesn't change who wins, just who wins the bet. Take this college football game on September 6th. Ole Miss was up on Kentucky 30-20 late in the fourth quarter. Sure, Rebels favored by 8.5. Looked like an easy cover, right? Right for Lane Kiffin's crew. But with 8 seconds left, Kentucky drove down the field, kicked a field goal, didn't matter for the game. Ole Miss still won, but for folks holding those Ole Miss tickets, that late kick backdoored their bet. And I was one of those people who got backdoored. Now, even Coach Kiffin had some fun with it, joking after the game, sorry to a lot of gamblers there at the end, which, you know, he's a troll, I get it. But this reason right here, Mr. Kiffin, is a big reason I stay away from Ole Miss spreads. They're on my ban list. So anyway, next time you see a team score late when the game's basically over, remember, that's a backdoor cover. It's the heartbreak play of sports betting, unless, of course, you're on the right side of it, then more power to you. All right, let's get to this week's Bluff City lines. It's Halloween weekend, going to get a little spooky. And I'm rolling with Memphis on the money line over Rice. Yeah, it feels like an easy pick, but as we say, so did UAB. And we all remember how that trap game went. Memphis is 5-1 this season when favored on the money line, winning more than 80% of those games. When they're heavy favorites like this, they've still handled business 2 out of 3 times. The one, UAB. So anyway, for the spread, I'm taking Memphis to cover at -14. The Tigers have covered in 7 of 8 games, and they're 4-1 when favored by 2 touchdowns or more. And for the total, it's set at 49.5. I'm going to take the under on this one. I see Memphis controlling the pace, leaning on that balance they've shown lately. So all in all, I got Tigers winning, Tigers covering, and the total stays under. Let's move over to Oxford. The Lane train rolled right through Norman last weekend. Ole Miss bounced back from that UGA loss, taking down Oklahoma 34-26. The Rebels are 7-1 and perfect at home in the Grove this season. Now they've got South Carolina coming in, and yeah, this one's really written trap game on it. Ole Miss is coming off 2 tough road trips, while the Gamecocks nearly upset Alabama last week. But in saying all that, I think Lane Kiffin's group stays poised and handles business. I'm taking Ole Miss on the money line. They keep the win streak rolling in Oxford. I'm going to go ahead and take the over on 54.5. Ole Miss, they score a lot. And South Carolina's quarterback, Lenore Seller, I think he makes enough plays to push this one past the number. So all in all, I got the Rebels winning and the scoreboard lighting up. All right, let's check my Bluff City lines record. Last week, not too bad. I'll be honest, this was the first time I was glad to be wrong on a pick. I missed on USF money line in the spread, but watching that one from the sidelines, I gotta say the Memphis fan in me took over, and I was pumped to see the Tigers get the W. And hey, it wasn't a total loss. The game hit the over at 63.5. So we cashed something. Remember what Denzel said? I'm leaving here with something. Now, Ole Miss, that was a clean sweep. Hit the money line, and the game flew past that 51.5 total. So all in all, I went 3-2 on the week. That bumps the season record to 17-14. Not bad, not bad. All right, I told y'all I'd start bringing the Grizzlies into these picks, and I do so by getting ahead of the line and taking Cedric Coward for NBA Rookie of the Year. Yeah, it's a long shot at plus 4,000, but this kid is just getting started. Saturday, he dropped 27 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, and was 6 for 6 from three-pointer, a Grizzlies record in the victory over Indiana. He's averaging 19 points or nearly 73% from three through 3 games. And remember, this is a guy who shot 3 for 26 in the preseason. You were hearing all this nonsense about him being a bust, just people living in the moment. Maybe I'm living in the moment with this pick, but with half the roster out, Coward's locked in, he's been professional, and taking full advantage of the injuries. Now, Philadelphia's VJ Edgecombe, he's good, no doubt, but I'm riding the Memphis momentum. Give me Cedric Coward for Rookie of the Year. As always, send me your takes. If you have a betting terminology you're unsure of, send it my way. Want my opinion on a slip or a ticket you have? Send it my way. And man, if you even want to spotlight your W, we will give you your flowers on this program because we have fun over here, man. At me on X at RD2Sports, text the number 901-321-7520, or just use the hashtag ABC24Floor. But in saying all that, remember folks, producer Leanna, bring it up for me one more time. This content is for entertainment purposes only. ABC24 and its affiliates do not encourage gambling. Viewer discretion is advised. Any betting decisions you make are solely your responsibility. We are not responsible for any financial losses or wins resulting from information presented on this program. Time for a quick break. There was a lot of cool things I saw in the sports world recently, but what was the best thing? I'll give you a hint. It took place right here in Memphis. I'll talk about mine, and we'll hear from Ruben when we come back. All right, I touched on this a little bit in 901 Bets, but the best thing I saw was Memphis' thrilling victory against South Florida. Now, Ruben, you like to bring up when I'm wrong, but in this situation, I was happy to be wrong because what a comeback for Memphis from that Cortez Brown touchdown grab to Grammatica missing the game-tying kick. And I was talking to South Florida folks on the sidelines. They said he's money. Well, he wasn't money there because he missed, Ruben. And then the celebration afterwards, I took it all in person. Here's some videos that I shot from down on the sideline. What a time it was. Definitely a game I'll remember for a while.
Well, Grammatica may be money, he just might not be American dollars. He might be pesos or something, you know? He's not quite
Euros, pesos.
Euros. He's a yen or something, I don't know.
He's kind of royalty. You know, his dad was the kicker for
Yeah,
the
I was going to say, he's got the name. He's got the name that goes with it.
Because I saw him on the sidelines, and I was like...
His dad's name like Martin or something?
Yeah, and I was like, is that? And then the people was like, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Pops probably smacked him in the back of the head when he got home. He's like, we don't
well,
miss
he
these.
was smiling after he missed the kick.
We don't miss
People
these
said he
things.
missed it on purpose.
To be clear, for all the people at home, who was right and who was wrong in last week's prediction?
Oh, my goodness, dude.
I just want to make
said
sure
that I was okay with being wrong.
Go look in the camera right there. We're on camera 3. Go ahead.
Oh, my
Sit
God.
on up
I'm okay with being wrong.
Okay, but I was right. Okay,
I still got it. You didn't even watch the game. You didn't watch the game.
Doesn't mean I wasn't right.
Oh, my God. I text Ruben after the game. I was like, what a game. He was like, I'll be honest. I didn't watch it.
I didn't get to watch a second. I was so busy all day. I was like, I'll have to go back and watch it. But no, you are correct. That was a great thing that we saw, and you're right. If there's ever a time to be wrong, it was right.
Now, but I know I should have said this when we were talking to John. Do you think that this is the most exciting victory for Memphis this season?
Yes.
It's bigger than Arkansas? I
Yeah.
mean, both were like a hell of a game.
I don't know, man. The Arkansas game that's a fumble.
But Arkansas wasn't ranked in this. I mean,
You know,
they weren't ranked, but they were an SEC.
You got to get a defensive stop. Literally, you have to steal the ball to win the game, and you got a backup quarterback coming in who runs like 6 yards on a third down to secure the win. I don't know. The Arkansas game was pretty exciting.
That's because more people was in the crowd.
But I do think this one had much more on the line, and so the level of like the relief of the win definitely was heavier here. I think the excitement of beating an SEC team was high for Arkansas, but the relief of this win was massive, to your point. All right, so that was the best thing you saw. Let me show you the best thing I saw.
Zollers. Now this could be the last play. To the end zone. At the goal line. Is it
So
caught?
close.
We should have kept Wendell around for this.
I was going to say, too
A
bad
little bit of
Wendell
complete
left.
pass on the field.
Because this was the best thing I saw. Missouri freshman quarterback Matt Zollers with a chance to upset Vandy. Kevin Coleman Jr. comes up with the ball, but he comes up with it so short of the goal line. The knee goes down, the ball's bobbled. You can see a good look at it right here. Look at how close that is to being an upset or a heartbreak. Man, there's a thin
was
line.
so
Hey,
close.
listen, there's a thin line between love and hate, buddy.
I remember I texted Wendell. I was like, dude, what just happened? I was like, that was so close. Almost, see, when I first saw it, like, live, because I was watching it on mute, I was thinking he caught it. So I was thinking it was like going to be the Aaron Rodgers situation where they catch the Hail Mary. Then they said he was short. I was like, oh, no.
But hats off to Vandy, though. I mean, yeah. It's my best thing I saw because I really love Diego Pavia.
I can't stand that
I
kid.
like that dude, bro.
I cannot
He's got a
stand
chip
him.
on his shoulder.
He's annoying.
He's 5'10", and he don't care if you like him or not. He's just out there
The thing
balling.
with his mom,
Well,
he's
now, I'm
freaking
over
putting
the
his-
thing with his mom. I'm
thing
going
putting
to
his-
keep my mouth shut about his mom. I'm over the thing with his mom.
He's setting Theo Vaughn out on a date with his mom. Like,
Well, they
what are
keep
you
showing
doing?
her every time she's at the game. I don't need to see his mama.
That's what I just
Just-
like that. It's almost like how I felt when LeVar Ball was doing this thing.
Ooh,
But his mom's
dang.
not. But his mom
That bad?
His mom isn't talking like LeVar, but it's still the parent.
Because LeVar, hey,
It's
he
like
was
the
crazy.
reverse.
He's crazy. No, I like Pavia because he plays with such grit, and he wants to win.
He said he should be the Heisman.
Well, he said no. He said he should. Yes, he did. Somebody said, "Do you think you should win? You should win." What's he supposed to say? No.
Yes, be honest about it.
Don't say that.
Or just be humble. Be like, I think
Nah,
I've
he's
been
not
having a
humble.
good season, but I think you can say that about a lot of people.
Yes.
Be like, wherever the chips
That's
fall,
the
they fall.
PC answer, but that's not what he does, and that's kind of what I like about him. He's a little bit like a Baker Mayfield from back in the day.
Ask Trinidad Chambers, should he be the Heisman? Watch, he said
He's
better
gonna
answer
he's
than
gonna have a
Diago.
much better answer.
Exactly.
A much more
And
trained
Chambers is
answer.
better than Pavia.
I agree. But
Thank
anyway,
you.
that was the best thing I saw. The Vandy's keeping their hopes alive. I just love it for Vandy because nobody expects them to be good, and they keep coming up with ways to win. So
Good for them, but they're not going to be in the SEC championship game.
No, they will not. All
But
right,
they
that's
might
good.
make the playoffs, though.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of the 24th Floor. Shout out to everybody who made today's show possible, especially Richard
Lee.
Denson.
Oh,
Because
thank
you do a lot of the work that nobody knows about.
I
So shout out to you.
appreciate it. Thank you. And also thanks to Leanna Davis, Brooklyn High for their work behind the scenes putting this show together. Big shout out to Wendell Shepard with the commercial appeal, John Maddox with On 3 Sports, and as always, our guy, Stephen Willis with the Locked On Ole Miss podcast.
Yeah, shout out to me for looking so good while I'm doing this show. No show next. You like that? No show next week because you finally get to take some time off.
Yeah, I'm going to be celebrating my birthday. Should I tell the people how old I'm turning?
22 years old.
I'm not gonna be as old as you, but you know what I'm saying?
He get his driver's license next week. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you on the other side. Once the gas wants to break up.